I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you all for coming out on this wonderfully snowy day. I'm glad you all got dug out. I don't know about you, but it took some time to do that, and it was not the light, fluffy snow that they kept saying it was going to be, at least at my house. So before we start the meeting, a couple of things. I'd like to congratulate the Nordic ski team, who are state champions, and also the boys and girls Nordic ski team and the Alpine boys for receiving the Sportsmanship Award. That did I say something? Oh, okay. I didn't want to steal your thunder, but I did want to steal it. Yeah. Donna, Superintendent Wolfram, received some really good news that was in her superintendent's report as well about the graduation rate being up to 94.79%. Fantastic news. Perhaps one day we'll get to see 100%, but yes. But parents, teachers, administrators, everyone involved in kids' education need to be congratulated for getting that graduation up to that point. So thank you, parents, thank you, teachers, thank you, administrators, thank everyone involved in education. And now, yes, I'd like to welcome the Select Board to our meeting, the Reedfield Select Board, and Trish from the Mount Vernon Select Board. Just take a moment, and if you'd like to introduce yourselves, that would be wonderful.
I'm Trish Jackson, and I'm here representing Mount Vernon.
I'm Bruce Burgoyne, I'm from Reedfield.
Derek Dyer, I'm Reedfield Town Manager, and I have a son, kindergarten.
John Barron, Reedfield Select Board.
Catherine Woodson, Reedfield Select Board.
And we'll just go around and introduce ourselves. I know that we all have name tags, thank goodness. But Wendy?
Wendy Brotherland, representing Manchester.
Caleb Frischard, representative from Manchester.
Kathy Jacobs from Mount Vernon.
Gary Carr from Wayne, Maine.
Eddie Morrill from Reedfield.
Donna Wolfram, I'm the superintendent.
Bridget Williams, Finance Manager.
Adam Woodford from Reedfield.
Alexander Wright, Mount Vernon.
David Twitchell from Wayne.
Jeremy Payne from Manchester.
And Sean
Roderick, Reedfield.
And we have two student representatives here. Would you introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm John McLaughlin.
I'm Hannah Woodford.
And Lucas just walked in from Mount Vernon. All right. Come on in and take a seat. Find your name tag and
And there's folders.
we've just done some introductions. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves.
Hi, Aaron Krastowski from the town of Wayne.
Trent Emery, from the town of Wayne, select person.
All right. Right now, next on the agenda are the student representative reports. So Hannah and John.
Hi. Okay. So this year the juniors won Winter Carnival, and everyone had a lot of fun. That was a good week.
Microphone on.
Yeah. So the juniors won a carnival this year, and everyone had a lot of fun. That was a good week of relaxation from classes. And winter sports are wrapping up. I think all of them have had their last games of the year. The Spain trip is in Spain right now. German Immersion Day was last Saturday, and everyone had a lot of fun there. Math team has a meet tomorrow, and Mr. Gower is taking his students on a field trip to the Margaret Chase Smith Library.
Also with Mr. Gower, students will compete at the National History Day competition in UMO, I think, on the 7th. And also on that day, the class of 2020 has a paint night fundraiser. Juniors are taking SATs April 10th, which is going to be a lot of fun. OBS hopefully will have completed their exchange with Lewiston by the end of the month because it got postponed from last time. Prom is next month, which is probably the most exciting thing on here. And as of today, we'll be going to school by the end of July. So we're doing great. High school's great.
Don't have to worry about what to do this summer.
No, it's already pre-booked.
Any questions for John or Hannah? Thank you. You can stay if you like. You can leave if you like. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I just turned it off so I wouldn't be cough into it. So, and that is a reminder that we need to be using our microphones tonight so that we can be heard on TV. Any additions or adjustments to them?
I have none.
Okay. Any others?
Can we get an update just on the architect on the report? Is that something that can be talked about tonight?
Probably not tonight, but we
Did we
could
get-
add it to.
Did we get any, we haven't gotten anything from them?
What was his question?
The question was an update from the architects. We can certainly put it on as soon as we know something onto another agenda.
Baby's coming over February vacation.
Did we had a timeline though,
Yeah, I know.
and they're past.
Past that, yes, they are.
Okay. All right. We are now into the joint meeting with the local select boards and us. So, Donna and Bridget, take it away, please.
Diane McGregor, our Director of Technology, is just going to do a really quick update on our website and all of the information about the budget that is available on the website.
I'm going to take you to our district website, and for our district website, we have presented a lot of our budget information in lots of different ways, so people can access different ways to access the information that they want. So this is the home site. During budget season, I start off with a budget update that Dr. Wolfram puts out after every budget meeting. Those are sent out to each of the secretaries so that they can email it to the parents at each of the schools. They're also sent out to the town offices. They're sent out to, like I have, if you look on here, we have sign up for email updates. We have a group of people who just sign up for budget updates. That's one of the categories that you can select, so that those get emailed to them as well. And I post on Facebook. So it's just a snippet, just the top part of the budget, and then they can click on the full budget update. And one of the things that we work really hard to do is to put live links to the documents that are referenced. So that makes it really easy if you're interested in knowing what the ED 279 report is. It's super easy to just bring that up, right? And so that's helpful for people to know what is being discussed and have that live linked. We also have, if you go to our budget page, we have all of the past year's budgets on here from 14-15 all the way to 17-18. We have a list of all the budget updates. And you can see what was discussed at each of the different meetings. So let's say you want to talk about, what was given in the technology budget. You can see that it was discussed on February 7th. You can go to that budget update and then go to the technology things that are posted there. There's another way that you can look at you can just go straight to the documents and say, okay, I want to know what the elementary school budgets look like. So we can find the elementary schools, and they've got Wayne, Reedfield, Mount Vernon, and just look directly at those. Or maybe you want to look at new requests that have been put in, or maybe you want to know about the revenues. So all of these documents are all available to whoever would like to see them. We also have a place to submit budget questions or comments, and we haven't had very many of those. I've also put that out onto Facebook so we can, elicit some responses that way. And then we have the budget workshop videos, which Bill is filming right now and getting that on our YouTube channel that can show exactly what happened at each of those meetings. Let's see. I'll also go, under about the school board, you can find the board contacts, the agenda and minutes to all of our meetings, the advisory boards, board committees, the annual reports, and the audit reports that are all there. So lots of information on our website, hopefully in a way that's organized so people can access what they need in a way that's fairly simple. When we do our Facebook page, I'll just bring up. You'll see that we have, I'll post the link to our budget meeting, there's just so much on here right now. A lot of school closings. So, anyway, I'll put the entire budget update in there, and then the links to our website for all of the documentation that went with that budget meeting. So, are there any questions, comments?
You do a great job.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
You're welcome.
So as we work on the development of the FY19 school budget, we do continue first to celebrate all the achievements and successes of our students as a result of the educational and co- and extracurricular offerings that you all as citizens of the district have provided for them in previous budgets. Earlier this year, RSU38 was identified as one of the top 10 places to live in Maine by niche.com, and that is on our website, and Diane's just going to scroll down and find that. Yep. Thank you, Diane. This rating is based on data collected from test scores, graduation rates, parent and student surveys, and from many other data sources. And if you read this article, it talks about some of the different data sources that they used. As Betty said, our graduation rate is now 94.74%. This is a tremendous increase from the graduation rate in 2011. That was 76.03%. In 2013, 80.5%, 82.11% in 2014, 91.09% in 2015, and it was even an increase from last year's graduation rate, 2016, that was 91.96%. We were pretty proud of that, and so we have surpassed that. So we are up to 94.74%, and it's really something to celebrate. It's really an awesome achievement, and again, as Betty said, the result of a tremendous amount of work from students, of course, but administrators, parents, teachers, everyone in our district who's really pulled together to get students graduating. Members of the RSU38 boys soccer team were recognized as conference, regional, and state champions. Just giving some of the celebrations of the year. The boys Nordic team, again, earned the state championship. Our cross-country girls won the conference and regional championship and won the sportsmanship banner. Boys Alpine won the sportsmanship banner. 4 of our students, Tyler Dunn, Gavin Ducasse, Robert Allen, and our own Hannah Woodford, qualified for the National Speech and Debate Association National Tournament representing Maine and Maranacook in Fort Lauderdale in June, so that's very exciting. Both our high school and our middle school plays hosted sold-out crowds this year. 40% of our 9th through 12th grade students and 60% of our grade 11 and 12th grade students are participating in our dual enrollment system. And I'm hearing awesome results from parents whose students have gone off to college, and the colleges are giving students credit for those courses and saving them a lot of money, which is a good thing. We have 4 students this year who are on track for receiving both their associate's degree from Thomas College and their Maranacook diploma. 4 students, that's pretty awesome. In June. The college acceptance season has started, and we actually have had 3 students accepted at Bowdoin College, which is unheard of for a small high school. Students have also been accepted at Connecticut College, Dalhousie, Maine Maritime, Roger Williams, Universities of Arizona, Maine, New England, and Northern Florida, and Virginia Tech, to name a few. So we have a high rate of our students who have been accepted at college at some very outstanding colleges. The list of student successes really goes on, and again, thank you to all the citizens of RSU38 who have supported that. We have an amazing group of students here. They continue to amaze me. They're just wonderful. In January, the RSU38 School Board adopted the following goal for the FY19 budget. The goal is promoting student success in all areas as we strive for academic excellence while maintaining fiscal responsibility. So there's a lot there that we have been keeping in mind as we have been going through the budget process. This is the same goal that we had for FY18 budget development, and the board feels that it represents the focus of the budget development work. There are 2 parts of our school budget that we must consider, and that must align. The first part is the expenditure part, what the district will spend in order to provide an adequate educational experience for our students. So this includes administration, teachers, administrative assistants, ed tech, supplies, co and extra curriculum, facilities, and transportation, to name a few. The district can only spend the total amount of the expenditure budget. We can't spend more than that. The only exception to that is any grant monies that we receive. The second part of the budget is the revenue part. It's the funds that the district takes in to pay for the expenditures. And this includes some sources such as state subsidy, tuition, and local taxes. And the revenues must match the expenditures. We can't spend more than we take in. State subsidy is dependent on state valuations and student enrollment, two big parts of the subsidy. The best scenario for the towns are when the valuations go down and the student enrollment goes up. In your packet, you have a valuation sheet, and it explains the valuations in the towns. Valuations in the towns of Manchester and Wayne are up from FY18, and valuations in the towns of Mount Vernon and Reedfield are down. You also have a graph, and these should be in the right order if we did this right. So you have a graph that gives us historical perspective of student enrollment. And you'll notice on the enrollment chart that FY18 enrollment is up by 22 students. That really is a whole class of students, so that is good news in a state that often talks about declining enrollment. Our enrollment's going up. Also included in your information is enrollment broken down by schools and classes, and I think that's on the back. And if you look at that, if you look at Wayne, there'll be a slash with, there's 2 grades. Some teachers have 2 grades. In some schools, there are 2 second grades or 2 third grades, so it will give you a slash with both of those grades. So you can see, I think that was in January 11th. That, you know, that changes daily practically, but that is the enrollment as of January 11th. We have received our subsidy report, which is the ED 279, and Diane showed you a picture of that. It's on the website from the state for FY19, and our state subsidy has increased by $118,972 over FY18, so that is good news. This does include $16,146 for our submission of a regionalization plan with Winthrop and RSU2. So we did submit that plan, and that plan would provide for some shared services in the areas of co- and extracurricular activities, substitute training and tracking, and extended programs for credit and standards recovery. And there is an extra pot of money that would go to the region to pay for some of those things. So we're hoping to have, that will have to be passed at our town meeting. It will have to be voted at that meeting. So we're hoping that will pass, and we've been working on that. In your folder, you have a budget and subsidy history chart, and that traces both the district budget and the state subsidy received since FY04. And I think if you look at that chart, you'll see a definite pattern. We have not been notified about our increases in the health benefit costs for FY19. So we do have 10% in the budget. We're hoping that it won't be 10%, and Bridget and I have been talking about possibly taking that down to 8% in our next go-round with our budget, our next version of our budget, but right now it is at 10%. So when you look at budget figures, at this point, there is a 10% increase in our health benefits in that. This 10% represents an increase of $248,470 more than FY18. And we expect to get notification on our actual increase the beginning of April, hopefully. The negotiated agreement with teachers and bus drivers has been settled. Negotiations for next year's contract with support staff will start in the near future. We're talking about dates to start that at this point. Based on the information that we have, the expected salary increase for staff in FY19 represents $254,601, or 22% increase over FY18. Oh, sorry, 2.22 increase. Thanks, Bridget. 2.22 increase, percent increase over FY18. Give her a little heart attack there.
Yeah, I was negotiating, I don't remember that.
2.22%. As in the past, administrators began the budget development process by examining their needs in order to provide optimal conditions for student success in RSU38. So you have in your packet the original request FY19 budget. That represents an expenditure increase of over FY18 of $1,281,825, and that was a 7.45% increase. And Adam Woodford pointed out at the end of the last meeting that that was way too high, and we do agree with that. And we have, the A-team has been working, and we've been working with Bridget to try to bring that down, and we will continue to work on that. The administrative team began discussion on what was absolutely necessary to include in the budget in order to move the district forward while still maintaining fiscal responsibility. We have started the bonding process, and that suggestion actually came from this joint meeting a couple years ago. We've secured the services of Oak Point Architects to do a needs assessment of the building and grounds in the district, and they did complete their assessment over February vacation. They needed to get into our schools when the students weren't there. We are waiting for their report, so hopefully that will come soon, and they will work with the Facilities Committee to prioritize the needs as they are addressed in the needs assessment. We are hoping that several of our maintenance projects that are in this budget, such as high school lockers, we'll be able to include in the bonding process, so they would come out of this budget and go into the bond, but we're waiting to talk with the architects. And of course, the bond would need to be approved by the voters. So we're looking at that. After budget cuts were made by administrators, the version 1 general summary budget, so this is the budget we're working off now, represents a $960,440 increase over FY18, with a decrease of $321,386 from the original request budget. So we have worked to get that down, that $300,000 amount, and we're still working on that. There is a list of budget changes and reductions to date in the FY19 budget, and that's in your folder. The proposed reductions represent a 1.87% decrease from the original request budget. Also included in your folders is a list of proposed maintenance projects and equipment needs that are now included in the FY19 budget, proposed budget. And on the back, there's a list of projects that have been eliminated as we look to getting our budget down. Some of those things have been, we've been able to purchase with monies from this year, and we're still working on that. So projects are examined and included on the basis of necessity and safety. You also have a summary of proposed staff increases in your packet, and these increases are included or have been included in the version 1 general summary budget. So they are in there. They would not be added on. Also included in your folders is the famous green revenue sheet. This is a draft of our expected revenues for FY19. And there's a back to that, so we'll be talking about both sides of that. So you'll see on that revenue sheet is the state EPS allocation of $3,591,893, and other revenues and their explanations.
What's EPS?
EPS, Essential Programs and Services. It's what the state deems essential to run our district. Notice on this green sheet that the balance forward amount is $500,000. With a local dollar required by the mill rate, the local only debt, which covers past commitments, and the additional local dollars required, the revenues equal the expenditure budget. And then on the back of that is the local dollar calculation sheet. And that describes the amount needed to be funded by the towns to support the expenditure budget. The required local dollar match or contribution for FY19 is $8,584,310, and that's an increase over FY18 of $405,605. This is based on the state required mill rate for all the towns. The mill rate, this required mill rate is 8.51 for all the towns except Wayne. And because Wayne's student population is low, the state required mill rate for Wayne is 8.04. Last year, the required mill rate for the 3 towns was 8.19, so it's gone up quite a bit. And for Wayne, it was 7.82. You have in your packet a mill rate history sheet, so you can see how the mill rate has changed over the years. Back onto the revenue side, the local-only debt on the revenue sheet represents the local debts that were voted on by the citizens. If you find that local-only debt, such as construction on the middle school, renovations at the high school, and new athletic fields, all that have been completed in the past years. And they were voted on by the citizens. On the revenue sheet, the additional local dollar amount that's needed to meet the version 1 budget is $4,610,243, which is an increase of $342,383 over FY18. We'll see those numbers on there. Also included in your folder is a budget progression sheet. And that shows our work on the budget to date, and we keep that updated as we add things and cut things from the budget, so we can see really the history of the work on the budget. There's also in your packet some information about debt retirement and about debt balance. So we will continue to work on the budget, and we are anticipating that our percentage of increase for health benefits will not be 10%. So we will be working to reduce that. We'll take it down to 8, and then hopefully we'll get good news, and it'll be 0. So, but we won't know for a while. So under budget update, at the last meeting, information was requested about funding that, and I believe where's Alex? Oh, Alex, you asked for that, for the middle school industrial arts program, so that is in your folders. And also at the last meeting, the board asked for information on history of participation in it was asked from Al McGregor, participation in and extracurricular activities, and that's included in your folder, and I believe that was in order to really study whether a participation fee had an impact on numbers of students who participated in our and extracurricular activities. So that also is in your folder. Does anyone have any questions?
Can I make a suggestion just for these generally? I find it's really interesting to get all of the financial data, but we obviously sort of bounce around. Is there a reason why we don't just put page numbers on the bottoms of all of these pages? So when you bounce from 17 to 15 or 20, I just think that would make it a lot easier because sometimes you're talking and I'm trying to figure out where we are. So that might just be useful going forward.
Okay, so we've reviewed the budget website, we've reviewed the FY19 budget, we've talked about the updates since the previous meeting, and now is the time for questions and comments from select board members.
I'll start.
Okay, if you can, yes.
Is that on?
If push the,
Is the light on?
I don't know. It is now.
Okay, you're on, Bruce.
If you could just highlight what you anticipate bonding and what, the scope of that bond, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, so I'll start and then I'll let you go. Well, we know we have some major projects. For example, the road out here is falling apart, so we know that we have to do that. We have some roofing projects that need to be done. We know that, and this is just from our point of view, we haven't talked to the architect yet. We know that at Manchester, the heating system probably needs to be redone. There's several different pieces of types of heating there, so we're anticipating that.
Those are the main, some of the big ones. So we've been given an estimate. The entire high school needs to be re-roofed. We've been given an estimate at $850,000 for that. The Manchester heating system, we were given a ballpark figure by the company that works on our boiler system that it would probably cost around $1 million to replace that. It's not just the boiler, it's the fact that that school was built in like 3 sections. One section of the school is steam, one section of the school is hot water, one section of the school is electric heat. And so to tie everything in together, it's basically hitting every single room and changing everything out, so it's not just a boiler. So just in 2 projects, we know we're close to $2 million. That's one of the reasons we wanted to have the needs assessment done, was to make sure that we know everything that needs to be done and then can prioritize it and roll it into one bond, of the top priority. We know we are not going to be able to bond for everything that needs to be done. But we've been throwing out the ballpark figure of $5 to $6 million, but again, that's a ballpark figure just based on the fact that we know 2 projects are going to be close to $2 million. And so that's what we've been thinking, but we are waiting for the architect's assessment.
Thanks.
Other questions, comments from the select board members?
Once you get, the assessment is on all of the school properties?
Yes.
Okay, and then you're going to take, obviously, the most needy or the worst situations, and hopefully come up with 5 million instead of 6.
We're also hoping that the architects will help us secure other funding things like revolving renovation funds from the state, energy savings, and that sort of thing. So
That was another question I had, is if the state is participating in any of this upgrading.
We're hearing that there might, from our friends in Augusta, right, Sean? That there might be some revolving renovation money that becomes available, so we certainly would be applying for that.
Would that be loans or a grant?
Pardon me?
Would that be a grant or a loan?
Bridget will explain how that works.
So revolving renovation funds are funds that the state sets aside for specific uses. And they have to be, they have 3 priorities, but normally the only ones they end up funding are priority 1, which has to do with structure, roof structure, safety, and, I'm trying to think what we've gotten them for before. Water doesn't count, I know that. No, not energy. It's basically a safety type issue. Air quality is another one. And when you can apply for it up to, depending on whether your school has any of these. And these are one of the things the architects are going to help us with. They know this revolving renovation plan inside out. And so they'll know which projects can qualify for these funds. And you can apply for up to $1 million for each building. And then a certain percentage of that is forgiven by the state. And some of that, I believe, depends on, your valuation and your free and reduced rates and whatnot. And then the remainder of it that's not forgiven is 0% interest. So it's really beneficial if we can, target the projects within the district that will qualify for these types of funds.
I just wanted to add in something on that. That kind of coincide. There's actually a bill right now that's been, I guess, fast-tracked would be the word, to put school safety at the top of the priority for renovation funds. And it was brought up last week, and I would assume it's going to pass and become law when you have all 10 members of leadership voting for it. So I just wanted to bring that up to keep that in mind. And as school safety, I mean things like organizational building, making sure buildings are secure, those type of things. So I can provide more information as the bill moves along, so we're kind of ahead of the course, but I would be shocked if the bill didn't pass.
Yes.
We're supposed to have it now. So I don't know.
Thank you, Betty. So, there are no pages, Jeremy, but I think I'm on the version 1 budget. It says that right now we're looking at a $960,000 increase to the budget. And then when I go to the green sheet, I need a little help because you went through those really quickly, and I know I can read this if
Sorry.
I take time. But when I'm looking at the town on the backside, can you tell
Okay,
me
yep.
how that's correlating to final numbers at this point in time for towns in terms of increase?
These numbers are based on that expenditure budget.
Okay. So,
Do you want to say anything more about that?
Do you have specific, is
so
there a
if I'm
specific
looking
number?
at Reedfield, Bridget,
Yeah.
because I'm from Reedfield,
Yes,
the local dollar increase looks to be $158,000, is that correct?
that is correct right now.
Okay. And that would be our portion of that 960?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes,
I mean, I know there are lots of other things that go into that, but that's the number that you really have any control over, is that 960?
right. The 960 is the budget increase, but the actual local dollar increase is 744,000. That's due to the fact that we've increased our tuition line by 100,000. We're getting a lot more Fayette students than we had in the past, and also the state sets the tuition rate, and it went up almost $800 per student this year. So, we've been able to increase the tuition line, and again, we received a little bit more in the state subsidy than we did in previous years. So, those kind of chip away a little bit at that 960. So that's why the local dollar is actually only up 744,000. And so Reedfield's share of that 744,000 is 158,000
Okay.
increase.
And the Fayette tuition, is that high school or primary?
It's middle school and high school.
Okay. Thank you.
Trish?
When I was on that side, I would have an annual going, usually with Missy, I think, and I'm sorry she's not here. Oh, sorry. I also never use my microphone. Just worrying about little old ladies paying their taxes, first of all, which I still am concerned about now that I'm on this side. And we are also worried every year about, just making sure that anything that we did as a school board was stuff that was absolutely necessary. Because there's just one pot of tax dollars. And every dollar that gets spent at school is a dollar less that gets spent on plowing roads and opening the libraries, which, again, I mentioned last year when I was on that side. And now that I'm over here, I'm even more worried about snow plows and libraries and things. So I'm happy to see that you guys are going through and taking things out, and I hope that you will be able to find more ways to take things out. One question I do have is about the additional instructors and things, and I'm wondering, first of all, is any of that because of all the additional enrollment and the tuition, and is that anything that we should be concerned about?
No. Some of it is, especially the social studies teacher at the high school, is a result of increased graduation requirements. Also, the half-time ed tech at the high school is in there for not credit recovery, but standards recovery. So it's more of the increased graduation requirements and the proficiency-based, those pieces.
We added a lot of interventionists over the last few years, and it was a little bit controversial, some of it we had a lot of discussion. I was wondering, has there ever been any feedback that comes back to show that that's been a real success? Because you're keeping them all, so you must like it.
The interventionists keep data, and the data shows that they really are helping students. For example, in Mount Vernon this year, there was a full-time interventionist. There was funding for a full-time interventionist, and for the first time at Mount Vernon, all of the students who needed interventions are getting services. So,
And the test scores are going up. Oh, that's great.
but yes, the interventionists are keeping data on students who are meeting standards, and yes.
I had a question about the need for another elementary school principal, and could you explain that?
the other elementary school principal. Is that what you, yes. So right now, there is a principal, as you probably know, shared between Reedfield and Wayne, and between Manchester and Mount Vernon. Our numbers continue to grow. The needs of our students continue to grow. Really, I think Jeff is able to get to Wayne, 6 days a month, I think it comes to. We really need more, our elementary schools need more attention as far as principals. We have a new evaluation system that we are implementing to align with state mandates, and that requires a lot of our principals. And when you're trying to go back and forth, often principals will be at one school and they'll get called, something will happen at the other school that they have to go take care of, so that they're constantly moving back and forth between schools. So the plan would be to have a full-time principal at Manchester, a full-time principal at Reedfield, and then do a split between Mount Vernon and Wayne, and that would give both of those schools more principal time as well.
One more question about, not about the same thing, but about the bond. I'm reading that you have approximately $2.5 million in district principal debt. And if we add another 5 or 6 million to that, there are some things that are retiring listed on the next page in 19, 20, 21, 22. Do you have any idea what the impact of the bond would be and what length of time are you considering?
I really haven't, I don't know the impact yet. And originally, it was thought that this whole process will go quicker, and we would probably even be thinking about going out for the referendum on the bond, but this June, but that's not happening. So the process has been slowed down a little bit. But there's a lot of questions that need to be answered before we can decide the length of the bond. There's been, and I guess I'll bring it up because it's been thrown around a lot, that due to the fact that some of our elementary school, all of our elementary schools are getting old, the question has, or the statement has started being made, maybe we should build one new elementary school on the campus rather than put money into the other schools. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered about, because if we're going to build a new school, why would you put $1 million into a building and bond it over 20 years? So, but it's going to depend on the size of the bond, how many years we go. I know when we built the middle school, that was an $8.5 million bond, and we did it over 20 years, and so the principal on that is $425,000. So, we're hoping that maybe some of our debt goes off before the new debt kicks in. So.
John?
You kind of mentioned consolidating the elementary schools, which, as we all know, is not a popular thing in the communities. Where is that? 'Cause I believe we discussed that, we brought that up last year. Is it still just in the talking stage? Are we developing, looking at?
Well, we are doing our future search this weekend, and I suspect that might come up as a topic of conversation. Something that we have to remember is that even if we decide to go with an elementary school, it would have to be voted on. Also, that would take time. We would have to wait until state funding became available. It would probably be about a 10-year process. And in the meantime, we need to keep our buildings functioning that we have, so.
A 10-year process. Bureaucracy at its best.
Yes.
And part of that is the planning with all 4 towns and getting everyone on board, so.
A quick question, would every town have to vote in the positive, or would it be a total RSU vote?
I don't know, I'd have to go back and look at the agreement. Do you remember?
Yeah, well, the agreement, the consolidation agreement never talked about a new school. It only talked about closing elementary schools. So I know that when we moved the 6th grades up from the elementary schools to Maranacook, and we changed back then it was a CSD. We were a 7 through 12 CSD, and we became a 6 through 12 CSD. It was because all 4 towns were already members of the CSD. It was the cumulative vote of everybody, not town by town. But I can't guarantee an RSU would work the same way.
Thank you.
The other thing was the architect was supposed to give us an idea of how long our buildings are gonna last and let us project something. Right now, kind of flying by the seat of our pants, so I guess that's it.
One of the things that the architects, the comment that they did make when they were here is that they felt our buildings were in really good shape, so.
Yes.
Will you make that report available to the select boards when you get it?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, Bruce.
Thank you. I actually have 4 different items I want to bring up. First of all, last year we had on the ballot a warrant article, I believe, that stated that if there was additional surplus coming from the state, that we would credit or redeem towns in some way for that change, if you will, and subsidy that came after basically the budget was closed and we were moving forward. I would really encourage you to do that again. I think that actually held you in very good stead in the public, and it certainly did with the boards. We certainly did appreciate seeing that credit come through this last year, because it did. And I'll just make a political remark, and that is the state is sitting on a lot of money as a surplus, and I'm hoping that somebody hears me someplace to pass back the word that we should see some of that surplus go to schools. Some of it can go in the rainy day fund or wherever the governor wants it, but some of it needs to come back to schools, and we hope that you'll put on the ballot again that type of warrant article. Secondly, I do want to remark on the long-term approach with the elementary schools. I know that was mentioned last year, and I'm going to be part of that future search, so I can guarantee you, actually, that it will be brought up. And I won't be bringing that up simply because of fiscal reasons alone. I think there's some real advantages for how you staff and how you deliver services and so forth, and we'll need to make that case coming forward for the community. I'll try to see if we can find a way to do it in 7 years instead of 10. Who knows? Thirdly, I do know you were taking a look at the budget, and I do appreciate the adjustments you've made thus far. Of course, in towns, we do share a lot of fiscal concerns, but and this may sound a little contrary, and maybe other select board members who are from other towns and my own town here may not agree with me completely, but I would ask you, when you do this, make sure you preserve our investment. We've invested a lot in these schools, whether it's fiscal program or whatever. We don't want to get cut crazy to the point that we do things that bring us so close to the bone that we do not have the kind of school that ends up on being a top 10 place to live or whatever. I do know, at least in my town, there's been a fair number of new plumbing permits and building permits and so forth, so we're seeing some growth, and I think some of that is coming from young families because this is an attractive place to live, and one of the attractions is Maranacook schools, and so please build on that. And finally, I do want to just say that this is my third time sitting here doing this particular forum. I appreciate the opportunity to do it. I do know that Donna Wolfram is leaving the district, and as a select board member, I do appreciate everything she's done for all 4 communities, and I really wish you Godspeed down in Cape Elizabeth of all places, but obviously they know quality and, yeah. So thank you and good luck with that, and good luck with the board making a difficult replacement, I would say.
Thank you, Bruce.
Any other questions from the, comments from the select board?
Just curious where you are standing on your search for a replacement for him.
I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry,
Where's-
how is the search going for a replacement? Have you started having meetings?
Yes, in fact, we have a meeting, a full search committee meeting tomorrow night, where a couple of things will be happening. One, MSMA will be doing some formal training with the full committee, and second, we'll be taking a first look at the survey results. I am assuming that we'll be, I've received the passwords to look at, begin screening applications, so I'm assuming that everyone else will also. And at this point, we have a good number of candidates. So I'm pleased with that. But our work really becomes intense in the next 3-4 weeks. Okay, questions? I'll come back to the select board for questions, but now I'd like to move it to questions and comments from the school board. Harry.
So I noticed just in this graph, the amount of students.
Gary, which graph are you looking at?
Looking at this page. The foreign students coming in is 50 students approximately every year. But when we go to the budget page, we never break out the funds that those kids are paying. And so why can't we add another column, tuition paid, on this page, so that we know how much money they're actually contributing? Because I doubt if they're contributing $15,316 per child, like Wayne does.
Oh, if you go to the tuition revenue on the other side of that,
Yeah.
that's our expected revenue for tuition.
So you're saying they're only paying $100,000 per child? $10,000 per child? And we're paying,
We can only charge the tuition rate that the
I
state
know,
sets.
but I
and it's
think it
around.
would pay so that we all understand what the state is doing to us.
Right. The tuition rate right now for secondary is around 10,000. I've got it, 1 minute.
I understand that point, but the point is, we list 4 towns, but we really got 5 towns because of Fayette coming in, or whoever's coming in. And I think we should put that down here so we get a sense of where we stand as a town.
So if they're from Fayette, do you want another column for Fayette students?
Tuition paid.
Any tuition paid?
Right. So that we know, we can come down here and say, well, wait a minute, how's that actually helping us or hurting us? And where do we stand? And what are we contributing to their education? That's what I'm saying to you.
So Gary, did you see under other revenues on,
I do see that.
Okay.
I understand that number.
Okay.
But I think it doesn't highlight where we stand as a town. Each town should know that number. And they should be able to see, whoa, wait a minute here. Maybe we need to talk to our man over here, Sean, and say, hey, what can you do about this rate? You know? I think it's something that we should see, that's all.
okay,
I really do.
okay.
The other thing is, we go back to this
Okay.
page that we added, school nurses. And we added, I thought we were going to add 2. Weren't we going to add 2 to special needs?
1.6 there for special education students.
Summary of staff increases, you got 1.6.
6. Yeah.
So we added we had a half a teacher last year, right?
0.8.
A half a nurse.
0.8.
0.8? So So part of that 90,000 is going to actually be a refund from the state. Right. I will be watching for the subsidy formula on that.
Other questions from board members? David?
Just a question, comment on the additional principal. Wasn't part of the reasoning for that, that the principal not being present as often was putting more weight on the teachers and other staff and taking them away from their responsibilities. And so for their support to do their job, it would be an additional help.
Definitely. Thank you.
Other board member questions? Sean?
With the new teacher contract, the salary increase, did I get the number right, 260 some odd $1,000? The total, did I hear you say that?
It was what, 250, 254? Yeah.
254?
254. No,
601.
right, 601.
So does that teacher, that's everything, total teachers?
That's all
All
staff.
the contracts, all
That's all
staff?
staff. Now, it does say it's a 2.22% increase, which is lower than what the teachers got for an increase in their contract, but we had a lot of staff turnover.
Right.
Staff who were very high on the scale who left and replaced by staff who didn't have as much experience, so that's where the percentage went down some.
So so if I'm looking at this correctly, maybe I'm simplifying it too much, out of this, what's the total, $900,000? Really, only $700,000 of it is negotiable to keep the services we have today.
Actually,
Is that?
less than that because of benefits.
Yeah, because of benefits.
Yes,
So,
yes.
So 600,000 is really negotiable.
Yes.
To keep the services we currently have. Okay.
Other questions, comments from board members? Madam?
Question, the high school ed tech 2, is that the study hall teacher?
Yes.
Reduced to? Not yet. That's a possible cut?
Possible.
It's a possible cut.
Is there, is there any out-of-the-box thinking as far as not just having a person sit in a room and watch kids? Is there, I know nothing about teaching, but is there anything like, is there, a new app or something that you can watch kids in the study hall?
So I think the major purpose for this, and Kristen's here, but, so correct me if I'm wrong, Kristen, but this would free up teachers to be able to work with students in their specific content areas for extra support.
Teachers can help the students struggling with the standards that they need to meet.
Wasn't part of it also to help the math teachers meet together? Wasn't that one of them too?
We have that already, that's our common planning time. But
Okay.
this was just to free up the teachers to work individually with students.
Other questions, comments, board members? Okay, citizens' comments. I believe Mr. Harker has signed up to make a comment?
Yep, good evening. I won't be too long on this, but I did have a couple of questions for you. On the bonding, Bridget, can anything be bonded, or does it have to be capital improvement projects?
What do you mean by anything be bonded?
Well, okay, I'll give you my big idea right off the bat, okay? And it's a crazy, wild idea. And it won't go anywhere right now, but it's a thought process. We're having a high amount of turnover of 1 and 2 and 3 year teachers. So we're basically training teachers, and then they're going on to a better school system. And we're getting a good turnover of retirees, and we're getting some new teachers in, so that we're seeing also a generational shift happening right now. So how are we going to keep these new teachers and keep them engaged? Our salaries are, I'm going to say 20–25% lower than the best schools in the state. And if the big idea is, if we were to up our salary schedule to be similar to Cape Elizabeth or Yarmouth, if we had $2 million stretched out over 4 years, we could immediately increase that salary structure right now for our teachers. Meaning a lot of the new teachers are going to get some more money, some of the older teachers are going to get some more money, and it's a crazy idea, isn't it? But here's the key. There's a good chance after 3 years we're going to keep these good teachers, and they're not going to go on to a better school system with better salaries. We just lost our superintendent, and nobody asked her how much money would it take to keep you. And she's going to the best school system in the state. So it's just a crazy idea, but it puts the money where I think we, long-term, where we really need to have it, into really good teachers. And we're seeing this generational shift right now, and it might be of value. So that's why I asked the question about the bonding.
And I don't know of anybody who's ever bonded for that type of reason.
Okay.
So.
All right. New idea. Okay. One thing about administration, I don't necessarily disagree with the need for another principal, part-time principal maybe, but our administrative salaries here in this district are about 1.5 times higher than in some of the best school districts in the state. You know, I really want to see more money given to the teachers, is really where I'm heading. But that's a statistic that's a hard one to swallow. But my hope would be that by having the new principal, that you would, the teachers would be able to teach more in those elementary schools. And then I have just 2 more comments. One is on private contracts for tutoring. I know we're putting in interventionists and so forth. In my mindset, my old mindset, it's tutors. And there are a number of school districts, both in and out of state, that either hire under contract tutors or they ask for volunteers in the community. A good friend of mine, she's an engineer, and she goes in and tutors 3 times a week for math and physics, free in the cafeteria to help students. So that's just another thought and an idea for you. And finally, getting back to really what I wanted to talk about, and I'll be brief, but in regards to the budget, my annual plea, again, as I've been here for the past 4 years, is to adopt a pre-K to 12 nutrition curriculum, do breakfast in the classroom, and improve school food service menu. I'm hoping that the School Health Advisory Council will see the need and get back to you on this, but I still feel we're really behind on this issue. What I would like to see is maybe $2,500 put into Becca's budget to allow us to hire somebody under contract just to put a nutrition curriculum together, see what it would look like, because I think this is a need. I see that you're investigating other new curriculums for mechanical arts and substance abuse, but just remember that the new statistics show that our kids are getting more overweight and obese yearly, and education is truly the key. And our particular program is not there as well as a lot of other schools. But there are other schools that are doing a lot more than what we are doing right now. So stay tuned, but for now I would ask you to please support requests that Jeff has to improve the equipment for his program in food service, because that will go a long way to helping in this regard. And finally, as I've done before in the past, I'm going to keep adding materials to the library, and I'm going to be donating the I Thrive CDs and curriculum. And for those of you who don't know about that, it's a new documentary that has come out of one man's search for solving his diabetes problem. And he went to the 50 best researchers in the country to get answers. And this gentleman resolved his diabetes. No more diabetes, by doing certain things that come with education about better nutrition. And our kids, if they had that education and looked at this documentary and started to employ some of these things, they won't go down the same road that we're going down right now. I'm also going to donate to the library, again, you have to approve these donations, actually, I found out, the new Tom Brady book. And that is a tremendous book. And his section on nutrition is like far above anything I've ever seen, as well as his other things. And I think if any of our students picked up that book in that library and flipped through it and adopted some of the things he did, we would have a Class A winner in every single sport here in this school. So that book I will put in writing to ask if you want to accept that as a donation. It's a wonderful book, and I hope that will help. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Okay.
Somebody else signed up for budget comments.
There is no one?
No.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else.
Okay, are there any other citizens who would like to comment who didn't get their names signed up? All right. Let's wrap this up with one final round of questions or comments by the Select Board and by the board. If you just raise your hand, I'll recognize you. And Catherine.
Does Marana Cook use the 5210 Let's Go program?
Yes.
That's got a lot of nutrition in it.
Yep. Questions, comments?
What is the 5210?
Five fruits and vegetables.
5
2 hours or less of screen time.
2 hours less screen time, 1 hour of activity,
And
zero sugary drinks.
There you go. That was a team effort.
And that's promoted, it's a state-run program, and it's also promoted by the Barbara Bush Children's Hospital, and it's advertised in virtually every physician's office for young children. So there are a lot of great materials there, but it's all volunteer kind of participation.
John.
Yeah, as far as, I was just thinking about the tuition that we get in, the children that we get in. They haven't really added to the cost of operating the schools. It's not like you have to hire a new teacher or, now is there a busing situation, or does Fayette take care of that? Or?
Fayette buses their students.
Okay, so there really isn't, you're not adding cost per student. So it's kind of, it's a little deceiving to look at, well, we're only getting 10,000, it's costing us 15,000.
Right, the students we take in are spread over classes, so, and that's one of the advantages of having, say, all your middle school students in one school, because when you take 10 in, it doesn't really, you don't feel a huge impact of numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Bruce?
Betty, I know I can go on the website, which was very nicely explained tonight, and find out this date, but when do our final numbers when do we get those in the towns? What's your anticipated
The
date?
board adopts the budget on April 10th.
Okay,
So by then.
thank you.
And going once. Yes.
Appreciate these forums and the information that you distribute and the website. It's very useful for the select board and me. The other thing I'd like to encourage and part of the vision in the future, really stick true to a community or local community-based elementary schools. They're really important. for the communities, and I would hate to see that go away. So, okay.
Going twice. David?
I'd like to reinforce that to a degree in that there are cost savings by consolidation of sorts, but there are also costs, as was brought up with the community. The elementary schools bring a huge amount of community participation. Those parents are, I believe, very active and very connected, and it's just like a company having a local office. That makes a difference. So in our calculations, that's an intangible that we need to keep in mind, while still considering cost savings and how we can do that.
I believe this conversation came up before I got here, but there was a vote by the community, and included in the conversation before the vote was that it would be expensive to keep the small elementary schools. So, and the vote was to keep those small schools. So that's just a little piece of history.
And going 3 times. Thank you very much for coming tonight, all of you from Wayne and Mount Vernon and from Reedfield. We appreciate your coming and appreciate your questions, your comments. And
You're welcome to stay.
yes, you are welcome to stay longer if you'd like. Okay, we will move into the business part of our meeting with citizens' comments. Mr. Fine.
Thank you. I've been hovering for a long time, so now I finally get to speak. By the way, I wanted to mention a couple of things. The CATSI program is an excellent program and something that this school and this district, I think, participates in. It's a very good program. So, can you all hear me? I'm
If you
sorry.
could talk a little bit louder, I'd
Okay.
appreciate it.
Is
Thank
that better?
you.
Is that better now?
I think so.
Okay. So I'm sorry that I had my dark glasses on a moment ago, but I forgot my other glasses in the car, so be that as it may, I have to, now you're very blurred, but that doesn't matter. So I wanted to present a proposal to you, which you all have a copy of. I think maybe some of you have, maybe all of you have read it, I don't know. But I just wanted to be sure that any questions were answered. This proposal is for a new calendar. It is a multicultural calendar, which will have basically several points involved, which I'm going to go over right now quickly with you. But it also involves a policy shift or a policy change, and that's the thing that I think I would ask you for. The 4 points are, we're asking for, first of all, a multicultural school calendar. The second one is consideration of these holidays, which are basically whatever is represented in the district, I think would be reasonable. And what people or faiths are not represented in the district would be, eliminated for that year, and then it can be revised the next year. So it can be a bit of a fluid possibility. We are also asking for a makeup policy, as well as no penalties for excused absences. The reason we started this whole proposal was because as a committee made up of Jewish people, Hindus, Muslims, Baha'is, Catholics, Christians, we decided that this kind of a proposal was reasonable, and it's something that I think is is kind of obvious, but it's something that needs to be talked about amongst you all. I mean, not between you and me unless there are questions, but I think amongst you all you have to just decide. There are a list of holidays that are on the back, or the page 3 and 4, I guess you'd say, and they're listed in 2018 and 2019, 2020, although the school year would therefore pass between some. And some of these happen in the summertime and are really irrelevant, and some of them happen on Sundays and they're sort of irrelevant too, although Easter Sunday is one. But the makeup policy is something that I think is very important for the committee that I represent, I guess. It would involve anybody who is has an excused absence from school for a religious holiday, and it should be fairly clear to people who would be absent on which days and things like that. We are asking that you not propose that people follow up the next day, but maybe 2 days later, because really these are religious holidays and people should not be expected to study or do things like that on their religious holidays. So if you're looking at the 10th of Muharram, for example, in the Muslim faith, or Yom Kippur in the Jewish faith, these are holidays which people don't typically study for, or study on. All right? So you wouldn't expect them to be prepared to do a test the next day. Maybe you could make a policy that would allow for a 1 day or 2 day additional time to whatever. We're asking as well that homecoming and concerts and theater events and things like that can at least be scheduled around the holidays. For example, it would involve the school board looking at the calendar every year, saying, well, you know, this weekend, you know, or this week we have such and such a holiday on such and such a day, and so we can't have homecoming this week. We have to have it 2 weeks or a week later or 2 weeks later, whatever. Okay, that would be something that I think would be reasonable, although, you know, it could be that there's an unreasonableness built into this request as well. So, but I think that theater events, concerts, homecoming, those sort of things are large enough events and kids do want to participate in them. And so if there's a possibility for you guys to make a calendar which precludes those events, that would be better. The penalty for excused absences is, again, that may be a policy change. I'm not sure if it is or not. But in some districts, and I don't know that it's happened here, but in some districts it has been that if you miss a practice or you miss a debate team practice or you, whatever, for whatever reason, you just sit on the bench the next day, the next game, or the next time that the debate team debates. So for people who are absent from school for religious reasons, we are asking that you just simply not penalize them. It probably doesn't happen in this district, but just in case. We're also asking that the coaches as well as the teachers and staff know about the calendar, and therefore I think it's going to be important to print out a calendar that has these various holidays listed in them. And then finally, we were asking that if children miss school for a religious holiday, that they not lose their capacity or their ability to maintain their perfect attendance records. Because it seems like that's very important to some children and to parents as well, and I think that it's very important to us as well. So that's another policy change maybe that you have to debate or talk talk about anyway, but that's one of the requests that we're making. Do you guys have any questions of me or want to know anything about what we're doing or why or anything like that?
Thank you. We will be discussing the school calendar next meeting, and we will take this into consideration at that time.
Great. Thank you.
In your packet, there is our current policy on the observance of religious holidays. So, for your information as well. All right, any other citizens?
Thanks for the opportunity to just talk a couple of minutes about the emails I sent around this past week about the student demonstration. And I read this and I timed it. It's about 2 minutes, so that's about all I'll do on this, unless you have questions. Now that the student demonstration did not occur, they're probably going to ask you to do it again. And I think you have an opportunity to change the dynamic here. I think now is the time to let them have their remembrance after school. Now is the time to teach the children about, the students, about the factors that impact school safety beyond gun control. I'm passing around an idea that I shared with Donna this morning. And this idea is to utilizing the two documents that I highlight at the beginning of that page. One of the things you could do is have the students do some kind of a class project where they will ask questions pertaining to school shootings. I've noted 10 in the document I've given you. Help them find the answers, and then let them have an after-school discussion, a debate, have a public forum where they can present their findings and encourage discussion. If they want to continue to demonstrate during school, let them do so, but with consequences. It's a perfect time to teach them about civil disobedience, what it is and how it works. And also, come on April 20th, when you're going to have to deal with this again. Do not let them have their demonstration without consequences. Again, teach them that with civil disobedience, there come consequences. Because the nature of civil disobedience is to break a rule or a law to bring attention to some injustice. Let them read Thoreau's essay on civil disobedience so they understand where the term came from and what to expect from doing an act of civil disobedience. As Thoreau mentioned, and he's the one who coined this whole term, the refusal to obey certain laws or government demands for the purpose of influencing legislation or government policy, characterized by the employment of such nonviolent techniques as boycotting, picketing, and I'm adding, walking out of school during school hours. And finally, I just want to say to the concerned citizen who wrote me a very nice letter about my position on the demonstration, if she is in earshot of me right now, if she will send me an email, I would be glad to break bread with her to discuss how to deal with anger and fear using knowledge and wisdom to become a passionate advocate for your town, your school, and life in general. Never complain without a solution. And as I taught my children when they were growing up, always question authority when you feel there is a better way. So thank you for indulging me, and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But that's the idea I'm throwing out there to the teachers and the administrators.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to minutes, approving the minutes of the February 14th.
That we accept the minutes of February 14th, 2018.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions?
Make a motion that we accept the donations on the revised list. All the people?
Second? Okay, any questions or comments about those? Yes?
It would just be awesome, that brought this up to ABS before. It'd be awesome if those ABS donations would actually say, like, what the money was being used for. As far as when they give a lump sum to a team, it would just be, to have some record of that would be an awesome thing.
Instead of just student support for softball?
Instead of just saying we gave $3,000 to softball, actually saying what the community gave, or what ABS, what the money actually went to.
What the softball team was going to use it for?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Thank you. All those in favor of accepting the gifts? Opposed? Let's move on.
Make a motion that we accept the overnight trip for CHS Youth Leadership Retreat, Camp
Kiev. Okay. Did you second that, Alex? Okay. And any discussion? Yes.
So the $25 per student, is that you're paying or they're paying?
I believe the
7C.
students are paying.
They're paying?
Do you know, Kristen? They're paying.
The students. Any other questions about this field trip? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, unanimous. Consideration of out-of-state trip to the UN conference.
It's a Model UN.
Model UN conference in Boston, Mass.
Make a motion that we consider the out-of-state trip to the UN conference.
Second.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, policy. Donna.
Make a motion that we accept EVAA, chemical hazards, as written.
No comments were received, no changes were made, so the committee recommends policy EBAA for adoption.
Questions, comments? All those in favor?
Do we have a second? Alex, second, okay.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous.
GCQG exit interviews, no comments were received, no changes were made. The committee recommends policy GCQG for adoption.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion that we accept GCQG.
David, you want to second it? Sure. All right. All those in favor? Unanimous.
JCA school assignment, no comments were received, no changes were made. The committee recommends policy JCA for adoption.
Make a motion that we accept JCA school arrangement assignment.
Okay. Questions, comments? All those in favor? Unanimous.
JFC dropout prevention, student withdrawal from school, no comments were received, no changes were made. The committee recommends policy JFC for adoption.
Make a motion that we accept JFC, dropout prevention, student withdrawal from school. As written.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Unanimous.
JKD, suspension of students. There was some discussion by the board about the change to the 6 days, so the committee reconsidered the change, and Principal Conway was in attendance, and he agreed that the 6 days would work. So the committee recommends policy JKD for adoption.
Make a motion that we accept JKD, suspension of students, as written.
Questions? All those in favor? Okay. And
Policy first reading.
And the remainder policies on school board meetings, agendas, instructional library, media materials, selections, truancy, management of concussions, reintegration of students from juvenile correctional facilities, student education records and information are here for first reading. So if you have any questions or comments, please make sure that someone from the policy committee gets those comments, or send your comments to Donna.
So can I ask that question right now about the policy?
Yes.
So, we have a problem with the policy because we missed a meeting. So those of us that are on the policy meeting, what I suggest is that we put 3 on this coming up session and 3 on the last session, and then we'll be totally up to date. We won't have to make an extra day.
For April.
Fair? Pardon me?
For April.
For April. 3 for April and 3 for May.
No.
No.
3 for March and 3 for May.
Okay. Consideration of overnight trip, MCHS operation, breaking stereotypes in Lewiston. Motion? Need a motion for consideration of overnight trip, MCHS operation, breaking stereotypes? Okay. Who seconded it? Okay, Jeremy. Any questions about this trip?
They turned this in, but then we didn't have a meeting, and so they withdrew. They changed the date. So, oh, yes. Not this specific, they've gone there, but just for the day, but this time they're spending the night, so.
All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. Okay, now to the reports. I hope you've had a chance to read over the reports. If you have any questions, now would be the time to ask those questions. Kathy?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I just want to, as Donna was talking about all the celebrations that we have in the district, I think another really important celebration is the fact that the middle school was again named a spotlight school for the New England League of Middle Schools. That's a very rigorous process that they have to go through, and I'm not sure that people understand how important that is when you are named a spotlight school. I think, and I'm not sure if this is accurate or not, but it used to be there were only 2 in Maine, and we were one of them, and there are 34 in New England. So it's a real strong recognition. So I just want to congratulate the middle school again for getting that recognition. Thank you, Rick.
Any other questions for any of the other reports? Okay, I'd like to remind you, coming up this Friday, there's strategic planning futures search. Friday night, 4 to 8, and Saturday, 8 to 3:30. We'll all be together. Hopefully, as many of you as possible can attend those 2 nights. And the Superintendent Search Committee meeting tomorrow night, 6 o'clock here at the Media Center.